All right, welcome in, folks, to another great episode of I've Got a Theory. I'm your host, Henish, and I'm joined with my guest, Trav Bell, all the way from Australia. Thanks for joining me live on the show.
Hey, man. Yeah, stoked to be on. G'day from Australia.
You're obviously well-renowned worldwide of a guy that can help people do stuff, right? And overcome limitations and live some kind of more positive life. Am I getting that right, roughly?
Yeah. I mean, I've been running around the world as the bucket list guy for the last 10 years, and I've stayed in my lane. That's all I've done. And we've now scaled that out. We've got now certified bucket list coaches in 22 countries too. As of 3 years ago, we started that process. I've leveraged and scaled it out to affect more people's lives in a positive way. So apart from being a speaker, or as a coach, as the bucket list guy, and now an author, we've even got certified bucket list coaches in parts of the world where if you actually translate the word bucket list, it makes no sense at all, but they still get it. And so this is more than just what I've been talking about. What I do continue to love talking about is not just about ticking a whole bunch of cool stuff off. It's really about positive psychology. As we said before we hit record, it's having been through depression myself. These are the tools that I sort of built for myself to help me live a more freeing, more fulfilled, more purposeful, more meaningful kind of life. And I've just put these positive psychology principles, put this bucket list theme over the top of it. And it's resonated with a lot of other people who are in, the same place, or it's been the icing on the cake for others.
That really should be the first thing on your bucket list, right? Is to go through life with a positive attitude. And that kind of solves most of your problems, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that, look, it does, but a lot of people don't know what tools to use. And we suffer from infobesity now. And let's be honest.
What was that word, infobesity?
Yeah, that's not a trademark thing or anything. You can use that. It's my gift to you, man.
Yeah.
We're all suffering from infobesity. There's too much information out there for us to consume. So where do we find those tools? And for me, the last 10 years, I've just run this, I guess, bucket list narrative to hopefully change some people's perspective on their life of why this concept is important and how it can affect and be the domino that affects a lot of other areas in their life. I say that a bucket list is a tangible life plan where our career plan or our business plan should fit into our life plan and not be the other way around. And it really helps bring home that work to live principle for a lot of people. So yeah, I wouldn't be talking about it still all these years later if it didn't help people.
It's got to help people. I mean, that's one of the things that I've tell people myself is that, hey, if you can't find something that you love, figure out a way to help people, because that'll make it worthwhile as well.
Yeah, one of the best ways to get through your own stuff, and we've all had that, breakdown before breakthrough moments in our lives, or confusion before clarity. And that's why we seek, podcasts like this, man, and we seek books, and we go to events and this sort of thing, and we seek mentors and coaches and help because we realize there's a gap between where we are and where we want to be. But there's some self-admittance in that, and there's to a certain degree waving a white flag. Where do we go to find that stuff? Well, it can be overwhelming, but for me, this bucket list concept has been a way to channel my way of helping people, and sort of stayed in that lane. I mentor a lot of other thought leaders who want to go out there as speakers, as coaches, facilitators, authors, and I've always said, pick a highway, then pick a lane, and then own that lane and stay in that lane for a lot of years and go deep on that thought leadership. An inch wide, a mile deep, instead of an inch deep and a mile wide.
Right.
So, because you'll find that niche, and that specialization that really does help people.
For sure. And you're exactly right. I mean, so one of my roles and one of my hats that I wear is as a construction company owner. And instead of saying that I'm a general contractor, I tell people I'm a specific contractor, and that we do a
perfect.
specific type of work, which works out for our branding as well. But that's important, I guess, in any business. When people ask me like, oh, why don't you invest in storage units, or how about shopping malls? And I'm like, I don't know that stuff. I know the things that I know, and I can't compete with the people that do that full time, versus knowing what I do and being better at that every day.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important message to drive home, because the world can be pretty overwhelming. I think in business, especially, and I've had my own businesses my whole life as well, that it's really important to stay in your lane, and try not to be. It's what you say yes to, and what you say, more importantly, no to. Right now is where you'll gain your superpower.
Yeah. So, but before we kind of dive into that and the psychology a little bit more, it's fun to talk about bucket list stuff. So let me hear yours. Let me share mine. Let's just share notes real quick, because I feel like I've done a fair amount in my life, and I'm assuming you've done at least 10 times as much. So chat with me about some of your favorite bucket list things you've done, and a couple of the things that you've got left to do.
Yeah, probably the only difference there, though, between mine and yours, not that we're comparing, is mine for the last 10 years, my bucket list has been a tax deduction.
That's true.
So all the crazy shit that I've done over the years has been a tax deduction.
Yeah.
But no, look, I'm doing, it's not just one thing and then another. I've got over 350 things still to do on my bucket list, and I keep adding stuff all the time. It's not, mind you, it's not just about the actual list and the ticking off of the list. It's about how we reverse engineer every aspect of our lives in order to make this stuff come to fruition. It's the growth of us on this journey towards these self-imposed destinations. But more importantly, it's about the person that exists on the other side, and that's the person we don't know yet. And so that's about our potential. That's on the other side of our bucket list, is this bigger version of ourselves. And that's what I want people to get curiously excited about, because, people are dying at 40 and being buried at 80.
Interesting.
Right?
Is it because, are you saying it's because they don't have anything to look forward to? They don't have like a goal or something that says, hey, I'm excited about this?
Well, check this out. 89% of people in the States, and you're in San Diego, right? It might be a bit different down there, but 89% of people before COVID are what they call disengaged at work. Disengaged. That means 89% of people are going to work every single day and just not are into what they're doing. They're not passionate about it. They're just going, get the paycheck, come home.
Sure.
So that has a huge effect on the statistics, such as depression, anxiety, suicides, youth suicides, the overprescription of antidepressants. We've even got this thing now called the loneliness epidemic, that's a real thing. Like, Google it. It's like the adverse effect of social media, where we're all comparing our behind the scenes footage with someone else's highlights reel.
Sure.
It's crazy. And so these statistics, they're alarming. You go through COVID in on top of that, and lockdowns and everything else that we're going through right now.
Oh, it's been brutal.
It's a perfect storm for some serious mental health issues.
No, you've seen the numbers on that. You see people that are saying that domestic abuse is up, spousal abuse, child abuse, all of these
crazy
things that are the side effects of this are really bad.
So these are the things, like, I'm really like, this is the shit that gets me up. This is the things that fire me up and want and drive me to play an even bigger game, because it's not, and like, I get put on stages as a motivational speaker, but I'm not a motivational speaker. I just really talk about fulfillment, really talk about, it's not about positivity and rah and walking on fire and all that blah.
Have you done any of that?
It's really about, I've done it all. I've hugged it out and high-fived it with strangers. I've jumped off, I've been to Burning Man. I've done ayahuasca. I've done every workshop that you could, I think, and I've broken the arrows. I've bent the bars. I've punched the boards. I've done all that stuff. And you cry on my shoulder, I'll cry on yours. That's what, before becoming the bucket list guy, I went through about it.
Well, those are kind of little milestones along the way, right? You can kind of check those off.
It's all learning. And it's all those 1%ers that you learn too. So like in a game of football, it's all the 1%ers that create the big change, not the big aha moment. Like everyone's hanging out in personal development. What's that big aha? What's that big thing that one coach or one book that can give me that will change my life? Dude,
It's not like
it's
that.
all the
Right.
1%ers that create the 100% of change. So it wasn't until, so I worked through a lot of my own stuff. So prior to that, I was in the personal fitness training industry. I was the first to franchise personal training here in Australia. And we had a chain of personal training studios around Australia, and over 300 odd, employees under that brand, and tens of thousands of clients, over 2 million personal training sessions. But I found myself in a bit of a toxic situation, toxic people in my life, bit of a downward spiral. When instead of going on heavy antidepressants, I was like, no, I got to find out what was going on here with my own psychology. Hence why I ended up in doing a lot of personal development. It wasn't until a friend of mine said, hey, why don't you teach this shit? And I went, that helped me compartmentalize. I put on a talk, and someone at the end of it called me the bucket list guy. And that's how I became the bucket list guy.
How did you get that title? How did they relate that with you?
Because I'd had a written down list to do before I die since I was 18. Not a lot of people knew this about me. And I started sharing it about halfway through the seminar. And then Joe, one of the participants, said, hey, and it really inspired everyone. It was my reason for getting up in the morning, what I really recalibrated on, my why, my tangible why. And had a whole bunch of stuff on there. I started sharing, and I asked everyone, who were there, about 40 people, who else has got one of these lists like to do before you die, actually written down?
Yeah.
Actually written down. Like everyone's like, oh yeah, I've got a bucket list. All right, well, show me it. Oh, it's up here. Oh, right. So it's up there with your daily to-do list. Right. And guess which one gets done first on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, your emails.
That's right. Your daily to-do list. Until something traumatic or dramatic happens to you or a loved one, or you get given a use-by date, and then you write your bucket list. Just like the movie. The movie's shit because it's about two blokes that get given a cancer diagnosis, and then they write a bucket list.
Right.
Hey, dickhead, do it beforehand.
Yeah.
So,
but you can't go back in time. So at that point, I mean, but I think the purpose of the movie was like, hey, do this ahead of time, so you don't have to wait until you're at the last 25th hour of your life to figure it out.
That's my whole mission, is to help wake people up before they get given a use-by date, man. That's what I've been doing the last 10 years, trying to wake them up before they get, and it's not for everyone. I'm not presupposing everyone needs to be woken up. This could be just icing on the cake for someone like yourself or some other people, icing on the cake, some reminders.
You got to move the needle a little bit.
Yeah. But for others, mate, it's been an absolute lightning bolt, for people who really needed it at that point in time. And that's what personal development really is, right? So yeah.
There's an explosion in coaching, right? Even I'm sure in Australia, same in the US, where it's personal coaching, executive coaching, business, etc.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's just a twist on counseling or therapy, but now coaching is the kind of a just more in fashion way to say it, because you're effectively trying to accomplish something similar without the stigma of saying that I'm seeing my therapist, right? When you say you're seeing a coach, it sounds like, oh, cool, you're trying to get fitter, emotionally.
Yeah. I think they're more of a, I mean, in our, we're all busy being busy. It's like this weird badge of honor that we carry around with us all day. And, and I think we live in a more of an outsourced society too, where we've got coaches for different things, and we do outsource a little bit more readily if we can. But there's probably some admittance. There is some admittance too in getting a coach. It's like an admittance or a realization. Well, I'm so busy, I'm going to get the expert. I'm going to bring the experts in to help me close the gap on what I'm not an expert in. Right? I'm trying to figure this stuff out myself. I can't, so I'm going to get a coach.
Yeah.
To help me close the gap.
It kind of gives you a second set of eyes too, right? It's helpful to have advisors, mentors, coaches to say, here's what I'm seeing. Here's where you could tweak it. Here's how you can improve, whatever it is, right? And it's the same reason I use a trainer, right? And it's the same reason that I like coaches.
But the worst thing about it for the consumer is the fact that, in the last 6 to 12 months, especially, every single business is now an online business. Bonus if you've got a bit of offline presence. So for the consumer, it's very hard to wade through those that are full of shit and those that are the real deal.
Yeah.
Because of the fancy funnels and the fancy websites and this sort of thing. Go to someone who's been in the game pre-COVID.
Right.
go to someone who's been in the game for over 10 years. Seek those sort of mentors for wisdom and guidance.
So what's your program look like? Are you here in the US, or is it your coaches? Is there plans for post-COVID tours and seminars, workshops, etc.?
Yeah, well, at the moment, I'm lots of plans. I'm saying I unfortunately have to say no to a lot of. I do a lot of stuff in the States, but I'm saying no to a lot of gigs at the moment because trying to get back into Australia is a nightmare. To travel anywhere, it's a nightmare right now. So I've been doing a lot of keynote presentations online to teams. You love this because I know you're in construction. I'm doing one next week, the end of next week, to a concreting company of concreters.
Okay.
And these are guys these are all men's men. What a concreter, the
For
typical
sure.
makeup of a concreter.
Yeah, they're calf deep in this stuff, literally.
Yeah. And so, but the CEO or the director of that company is like, no, I want these guys to be, to have a life outside of work. I want to be a place of inspiration for these guys. I'm concerned about some of them right now during COVID haven't got a really supportive ecosystem around them, and they can go off the rails pretty quickly. I know that happens a lot in construction. So, so I want to do something positive. We're not talking about work when we have a meeting. We're talking about something that they can really apply to their life and gives them a reason to come to work. And that's the whole thing. And forms a bit more of a culture, a bit more of a team. So he wants to be an employer of choice that attracts and retains good talent.
That makes sense.
That's why a lot of people, because turnover, as you know, is costly exercise of hiring and then retraining. And so that's why a lot of people have been opting, to have me on as maybe a speaker or run a program for them or something. But lately,
how do we get your message? How do we get your message across to people that are younger, middle school, high school? You've got kids. How do we get them and their cohorts and people at that age to understand these lessons and practice it from an early age instead of having to find out at 30, 40, 50 years old?
Yeah, when they're broken. So, no, I get it, man. No, it's usually through the parents. It's what like I do when I'm able to, and when I have in the past. I've done a lot of public seminars, and I'll always say, look, if you've got younger kids like under the age of 18, bring them along free on me. All right, bring them along.
Yeah.
Right? Anyone under the age of 12, don't bring them along. They'll be super annoying. But between sort of ages 12 to 13 to 18,
sure,
bring them along free and get them to sit right next to you and let me say it instead of you.
Yep.
The stuff that you really want to say. I'm a speaker, so I get flown in hour, 2 hours, whatever. I get to say all the stuff that parents wants to really say, but it's outsourced.
Yeah, no,
but
it's good.
The thing is, it's through the parents that's a lot of those connections happen, because they say, oh, I've had a lot of parents go, oh my God, my son needs to hear this, or my daughter needs to hear this. Do you do stuff at schools? And it's like, yeah, well, let's do an email introduction to them, and we go for it from there. But I rarely work with kids if I haven't dealt with the parents first.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and I have kids at the age where my oldest is 6, and I have to teach him that he's at that point where he thinks I'm the greatest person in the world. I'm the smartest, the strongest, the best at everything. And I'm like, no. Let me teach you a little bit about my humility, that I'm nowhere near the best at anything, let alone, like all the things. So like, it's interesting that I have to kind of give him the humility that his dad isn't the best at everything when he thinks that, which is great. Yeah. But at the same point, it's like, it's an important lesson to teach him. But it's interesting how I feel like my generation, maybe yours as well, because I think your kids are maybe roughly the same age or a little bit older, that we treat them more like adults than prior generations did. And we understand that they have a really better understanding of the world than probably prior generations gave credit to kids for.
Oh, their ability to take in information is scary. I got 4 kids in my life. So Charlie's 23, Jane's 22, and two 14-year-old twin boys that live at home, and they're smart kids as well, man. Like they can program an app whilst playing a video game, whilst having a conversation with us, and probably play down ball against the wall at the same time. their ability to multitask is incredible, and
Yeah.
I'm sure that I did not get that wiring. But their ability to take in information, process, have a conversation is pretty incredible. Where will all that end up? I don't know, but they're
Do you see that you're
a
programming
hell
your
of a
kids
lot smarter
differently?
than when I was their age.
Are you seeing that you're programming your kids differently than you were raised with your parents?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I've learned everything not to do, what not to do, probably from my parents.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how that happens, huh?
Show more love, touch, connect a lot more, have more meaningful and in-depth conversations, not push as hard, not to mollycoddle as much. Instead to inspire, to for me, take the example, to take ownership of being the example rather than talking about it, but being the example for the kids to follow, not just talking about it.
So Trav, what's your goal? What's your end result? What's the next 1 year, 5 years look like you where you say, yep, I've done it. This is working out.
Well, one of the things that I'm working on my bucket list is this legacy piece with our coaches around the world. Is to open up in more countries. We've even got bucket list coaches in countries where, if you translate bucket list, it makes no sense. Like I said, it's like to have this. I guess the best description I can give it is like CrossFit. Right, love them or hate them, but CrossFit, the movement CrossFit.
For sure, yeah, burpees and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, they came into a very, very overcrowded fitness industry and created their own brand when there wasn't a place for it. They created their own culture, their own brand, and they redefined to a certain extent what fitness is. And got a really good, strong tribe of CrossFitters.
Yeah,
that's what we're doing with life coaching. Life coaching is a very, it's met with skepticism. It's very intangible. What we're doing through our system is making that more tangible, hopefully to get these personal development, these positive psychology tools in the hands so people can have a more fulfilled life, and not be a statistic, man. That's the big driver.
At least on the bad side. So let me pick your brains for something that kind of a selfish purpose, because I've been asked to speak to a group of presidents of fraternities this coming week and give a 30-minute talk on authenticity. And I was like, oh man, this is, and I've done a lot of talks myself, maybe not as much as you have on different topics, but authenticity wasn't the topic of one of them. So I've been trying to put together some talking points on that. Do you have any tips for me on how to talk to college, leaders that are graduating soon on authenticity and how that could be important in your life and in your work?
I think the is one, be authentic when you're delivering. I'm on the board of Professional Speakers Australia on what they call CSP, Certified Speaking Professional. That's a globally recognized speaking certification. Done the TED Talk, all that sort of stuff. The point being that every speaker, every thought leader is on the authenticity and vulnerability track to be more authentic and vulnerable. The more that you are when you're actually delivering, rather than just talking about it, but if you are in that moment, you'll pretty much emphasize the point.
Okay. So for example, could I do something like, how about like if I speak about failures or mistakes that I've made, does that create an additional layer of authenticity?
Of course it does.
Okay.
Of course it does. And you could, 30 minutes, you could give 3 stories, very vulnerable stories of where it exposed and go there. Like, this is not stand up, one-to-many therapy for you or anything like that. But what are 3 very vulnerable stories for you where you've screwed something up, and it's not just the hero story, but it's the tragedy to triumph. It's the before and after kind of scenarios, the confusion before clarity. It's the breakdown before breakthrough. All of these have learnings within them that I think when you become successful like you have, you gloss over them.
Yeah.
Right. But here's the thing. The real strength is in your ability to retract that and unearth those learnings, extract them, articulate them in such a way where people can map those learnings into their own lives.
Yeah. Awesome.
And see, you need to, like, when I talk, there's some stories that I talk about from stage that are they're as raw as when they first happened. I cry on stage. I'm known for crying on stage. I don't give a shit, because that's just my ego. That's just me going, oh my God, what are they going to think of me? I'm going to be so embarrassed. But it's in those moments, you don't have to cry on stage, but it's in those moments of vulnerability is when you actually change lives, man.
Yeah.
So people see the facade and they see all the successes. And as a result, without you telling, they'll be comparing their behind the scenes footage with your highlights reel.
Right.
Like we do on social media.
Right.
This is just social media 101 if you go and do that. But if you can string together the vulnerable parts of this story and go, you know what, it hasn't always been this way. Let me map that out for you. And when you think you're being vulnerable, go another level deeper.
That's great. I like that. I like that a lot. I was thinking along those lines of sharing some times that didn't go right. And that, I think that would teach an authentic lesson of how it's not all just wins. It's not all wins.
So here's my authentic talk. If I don't go and give them actual stories, hey guys, authenticity is about being as open as you possibly can and getting others to see your scars and see under the hood, open the jacket, whatever metaphor you want it. So the more you do that, the more authentic you'll become, and the more people you'll build rapport with, and the more people will, more opportunities might open up. No, go and be the example of authenticity and vulnerability, and then close loop by saying, as you saw in my stories, where was I vulnerable? Where was I authentic? Maybe get that from the audience and get them to identify, did you feel my authenticity? Did you feel my vulnerability in those stories? If they say no, well, then you didn't do a good enough example. You didn't go deep enough. But if they say yes, just go do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great tip. I really appreciate that. That was super useful, and it made my job a little bit easier next week, so I don't sound like a complete chode and unauthentic.
Invoices in the mail. It's fine.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, okay, so I don't want to drag this out too much further, but let's go over some bucket list stuff. I'll share mine if you're not going to share yours.
Man, I've written a book on mine.
Okay,
come on.
I haven't got that book yet, so I'll have to get the book and then go through some of your. So I like you mentioned ayahuasca. I have not done that. That's high on my bucket list. I've done some of the other stuff that's along the same lines for self-discovery and meditation.
I'm not going to play one up here, but I did my ayahuasca with some close friends of mine. We've done a lot of personal development stuff, right? And we did it like with a series, like not one of these like weekend hack kind of deal. We flew a shaman over from to Australia.
Yeah,
we flew a shaman from Peru to Australia.
Yep. Great.
And they bought the full ayahuasca kit, and we did it in a jungle in Australia. But
how did he import that? They didn't have problems with customs?
Not my problem. Not my
okay,
problem.
Fair enough. It's religious reasons, I would say, right? It's a religious thing, right? Yeah. For whatever loopholes.
Yeah. But we did it I did it in a unicorn onesie.
Okay. I have one of those.
Done. Do it.
There we go.
I want to see the pictures.
Yeah, no, it seems great. I've heard a lot about it. I've talked to friends that have done it.
It's good. Everyone has a different experience.
Yeah.
I had a good one. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it can be good and bad.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's one. My other high on the list, and I think I can get this done in the next 20 to 30 years, spend a little bit of time in space.
Nice.
I would like to be up there, space station, maybe a moon base. I would prefer a moon resort, look back at the Earth, play some sports at 1/7 gravity or no gravity, maybe a little dodgeball or something. I think that we can get that done in our lives, and it doesn't seem too far-fetched. Don't tell my guest a couple of weeks ago that proposes that the Earth is flat. I think that space is real. So that's there. That's up there. I think these underwater hotels that I've seen seem super interesting. I've done a fair amount of scuba diving, including
Great one of the Maldives. You can go to it's called Il Tikia or something like that. It's on a part of the Hilton chain, I think, over in the Maldives, and you can have the underwater restaurant. Meant to be amazing.
Boom. That looks awesome. I mean, we've got something comparable in La Jolla, which is here in San Diego, where you can get like a glass wall right up against the ocean, which isn't pretty bad. But it's pretty murky around here in San Diego. It's not nice waters like, Great Barrier Reef, Australia waters, I'm sure. And then, I think a lot of the stuff I just want to do with my kids and be with them when they get through their bucket list. Cause I've done a lot of these race cars and skydiving and traveling and scuba diving. I've done a lot of these things. I'm not scared of too many things. So that's kind of my short list. I don't really have a whole lot more on it. I feel like I'm accomplishing a lot and getting through it. And then just getting to live and balance life out. I feel like that's a part of the overall bucket list of being able to spend some time working, get to play sports a little bit, get to hang out with my family, get to see my friends once in a while. The COVID has put a little damper on just being able to travel even within the United States a little bit. But, as soon as that opens back up, get back out there a little bit. What do you think?
Yeah, that's what it's all about. I think we've been given a great opportunity to recalibrate on what our new normal and new definition of what work-life blend is. I call it work-life blend, not work-life balance. Nothing ever balances. Work-life blend, and we're all redefining that for ourselves right now with, people innovating like in their businesses and in their lives like never before, adapting to new technologies, radically collaborating like never before as well through mediums like this. And I think that it's here to stay. We're not going back to the old normal. And I think if you're hoping, praying to go back to how things were, and you're in business, get out of business, go work for someone else, because if you've lost the game,
it's a moving target
by now.
Right. Yeah. It's a moving target. And I always tell my team that what worked for us yesterday might not work for us tomorrow.
100%. Yeah. So look, I think, and that's why the book's been, I've just released it 2 weeks before Christmas. It's been really well received, man. Like in terms of helping people do that recalibration on their own bucket list, do a bucket list, to help them discover what really lights them up, because we kind of live with our blinkers on. This really helps you take the blinkers off and helps you really get you to think in a very different bunch of ways. And I encourage people to obviously do one for themselves, do one with their partner as well, the significant other. So you've got a personal bucket list, a couple's bucket list, and also a family bucket list as well. Yeah. And so we do that with companies as well. So to a macro level. And what it does is sure, it takes into account the SMART goal setting principles, but it really does allow people to, create that tangible life plan that I mentioned before.
That's awesome. Trav, I appreciate you spending some time with me. I don't know if I have too much more to cover. I feel like I got a lot, and I can't wait to get your book and crush through it and do some stuff with my family and my businesses.
It's all about
preferably what you've got, and then maybe see if you ever get out this way. Spend some time with you if you get to.
Mate, happy to help wherever I can. Doing a lot of virtual stuff at the moment. I think I'm suffering from a deep case of Zoom fatigue. But you know, we're gonna. You know, the good thing about being a speaker is, well, me being me. If I'm not out actually helping someone, whether it be via a podcast or a virtual thing, you know, like or a book, you know, I've got to help I've got to be helping. That's part of my DNA. It's one of the, apart from health, it's like one of my highest values. So this is a really good medium, and thank you for the opportunity to hopefully, you know, spread the message a bit more, but you know, hopefully being right there, you know, right place, right time for some people who are listening or watching right now.
No, and exactly right. I think you are sending a good message out, and it's a little bit different than just people that are saying that I'm a coach and I know what I'm doing. You've got the credentials.
And I'm a life coach, and I've never called myself a life coach. I've been a life coach for over 10 years, and I've never called myself a life coach.
Yeah,
but I help people in life.
Right.
But there's a lot of life coaches, as you know, a lot of business coaches that haven't got their life or business together. So it gets disrespected pretty freaking quickly.
I always joke. I like the School of Rock with Jack Black. Remember how he makes that joke about if you can't do, teach. And if you can't teach, coach.
Do. Yeah, that's
Coach
it.
Jim.
Yeah.
Coach.
I run businesses. I do all that stuff. But,
for sure. I'm just making.
I tell you what, I reckon the best life coach out there would be someone who's been through a couple of wars, who's about 90. I reckon they've got something to share with us.
Yeah, you just got to take the time to listen. I'm sure they'd be willing to talk.
That's it. Yeah, I reckon they'd be able to teach you a few lessons about life rather than the 25-year-old running around.
Get your mask on and go have a chat with them. Well, Trav, appreciate you joining me on the show. If I've Got a Theory, please like, comment, subscribe. Catch you next time.